Hello, and welcome to Somerville Neighborhood News. I'm Andrew McLeod.
And I'm Jane Regan. Today is January 14th. Somerville Neighborhood News is a community service production of SCAT TV, put together by staff, interns, and your neighbors. We bring you the news every 2 weeks right here on Channel 3 and on our website, scatvsomerville.org/SNN, where you can watch the news in your language.
That's right. With just a few clicks, you can see this newscast with subtitles. Tonight, our program is a little different. We have a few news segments, but also are going to rerun a few of the best segments from 2013. We start the new year with, what else? The flag raising. Then a story on the inauguration of the mayor, the aldermen, and the school committee, and a look at the homework culture at Somerville High School. And we'll reprise stories on a local jobs initiative connected to the Green Line extension and on homelessness in Somerville.
But first, let's look at some of the news from the past several weeks. Last week was the first of 6 meetings on how Green Line construction will affect people who live near the tracks. According to the Somerville Patch, over 200 homes in Cambridge, Medford, and Somerville will be affected. MBTA and the Mass Department of Transportation officials told residents about plans for building retaining and noise reduction walls. Check the calendar on the city's website to find out about the meeting in your neighborhood. Go to ci.somerville.ma.us and look for the calendar.
The cold weather, also known as the Arctic vortex, caused death, travel delays, and problems all over the country. In Medford, an oil truck carrying diesel fuel spilled oil into the drainage system near the Mystic River, according to the Mystic River Watershed Association.
Somerville began 2014 with the traditional raising of the Grand Union flag on Prospect Hill. One of those who attended was an historian who says he's got the definitive proof that the first U.S. flag was indeed raised right here.
I've just completed 4 years of research into the events here at Prospect Hill. I have a book entitled Revisiting the Flag at Prospect Hill, Grand Union or Just British. One of the interesting historical discoveries that I made in my research was the first documentary evidence of the phrase United States of America that was written immediately following the flag raising that General Washington did on January 1st, 1776. It was written by Washington's aide-de-camp, Stephen Moylan, Esquire, and he wrote, "I would like to take the full and ample powers of the United States of America to assist in the revolutionary enterprise."
This day is sacred to liberty, liberty granted to us by the great God Almighty. The arm of cruel oppression is stretched out against New England, and especially this colony. The King George has recently told us that our love of liberty precludes our love for him. The King and his ministers will not have us speak of liberty.
I want to thank Mr. Washington for this opportunity and for free passage through his lines to this location, that I may address you today and plead with you one last time to reconsider before all is lost.
I am General George Washington, Commander of the Continental Army. The first public raising of the first American flag!
But see, there floats an unknown flag, a flag unseen, unknown before. Let England's might tear down the rag that dares to flaunt upon the shore.
On January 1st of 1776, the Grand Union flag was hoisted here on Prospect Hill, under the watchful guardianship of Gardner's Regiment. Today, we, the reenactors of Gardner's Regiment, proudly participate annually in this flag-raising event.
If you've never made it to the first of the year flag raising, you really should get there next year.
Last week was the inauguration for the mayor, the school committee, and the new board of aldermen.
Over 200 city residents, officials, and representatives of the city's businesses and organizations gathered at the East Somerville School on January 6th for the inaugurations of the mayor, the school committee, and the board of aldermen. Master of Ceremonies artist Pauline Lim started off by thanking city officials.
Mayor Joe's administration has displayed the efficacy and perseverance necessary to accomplish serious changes, to protect and nurture the best our city has to offer, and to make our city an example to the nation and to the world of how civic leadership can create the happiest city imaginable.
One half of the new school committee, whose members serve for 2 years, is made up of new representatives. The committee's chair thanked the mayor and aldermen for investing in education.
That the quality of the city's schools is crucial to the quality of life in that community. Children who go to public schools with their neighbors develop a strong sense of being from here and of belonging here in Somerville. Whether your family has been here for generations, or if you are new to the city, like me and my family, 25 years here is still considered new, Somerville schools welcome you, embrace you, and work to help every child succeed.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
The Board of Aldermen also has new members. Almost half of them will be serving for the first time. In his address, Alderman Bill White was very serious. He warned that the board has some big decisions to make.
You know, you might ask if I just went a little overboard in stating that this board is facing one of the most critical periods in the city's history. And I'd have to tell you with a straight face that I am not. Folks should realize that at certain periods in the city's history, the decisions of its elected officials can influence the fundamental future of the city for decades to come. To me, one of the most important questions is whether the Somerville of the future becomes a community in the true sense of the word, or merely a desirable place for folks to spend a few years and then move on. For there is a real distinction between a city and a community.
White said he wants development, but he is also nervous. As Somerville becomes hipper and real estate prices rise, families are moving out.
Now, with this in mind, we have to recognize that massive real estate development can be highly seductive to a community. Large-scale building can increase the city's tax base to provide funds for additional spending.
The alderman made a plea for strong government oversight of all the developments to come.
As a city, we've spent substantial resources in planning and implementing policies that make our city so attractive for development. I believe it is therefore right and just for our city to regulate that development so that the city of Somerville will grow as a true community.
Joseph A. Curtis. I, Joseph A. Curtis.
In his 6th inaugural address, the mayor ticked off a decade of accomplishments, thanking city residents for supporting him and his administrations. He also made substantial promises.
We will protect those who have chosen Somerville and help shape Somerville. That starts with affordability. And affordability starts with housing. Every family that wants a home in Somerville should be able to afford a home in Somerville. But to make this happen, we must be bold. We must be innovative. We will create a new affordable housing program for working, middle-class families. We will not leave the middle class behind.
Other promises included hiking spending on education, public health and the arts, pushing a plastic bag ban, and zero carbon emission by 2050. Perhaps the tone of the inaugural addresses gives us a taste of what's to come, with half of the school board new and almost half of the Board of Aldermen also new. While Alderman White was full of optimism, he was also nervous about the changes happening in Somerville. The mayor, on the other hand, was mostly talking about promises, hope, and triumph. Reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Jane Regan.
So there was a difference in tone between Alderman White and the mayor, huh?
Yes, I think the next 2 years will be really interesting with all the development that's in the works for the city. Now, let's go to Somerville High School. This is the 4th news report from students in Craig Leach's TV and media class. It's about homework.
In Somerville High School, homework is a serious matter. It can either make you or break you. Some students do it at home or find time to do it in school, while others ignore it. Some teachers will remind students to turn it in, while others don't. Let's hear what some students and teachers have to say about homework in our school.
Homework in Somerville High, I feel like I get a good amount. I mean, not too much, not too little. I feel as though there might be times where you expect to get a lot of homework, but you actually don't. But in a good sense, homework is actually good because it gets you prepared for like your tests or a quiz or anything. Yes, it is very important because even though it might not be a hunk percentage of your grade, but it prepares you for the bigger things. From what I've seen in my 4 years, I feel like kids don't do a lot of homework. I mean, I can speak for myself. I know I haven't done a lot of homework myself, but I mean, and it shows in your grade.
No, homework is not helpful because jobs aren't going to give you homework.
Homework is a little overwhelming in some classes. Yeah, homework helps you do better in school because it prepares you for what you're going to learn. If I have to do my homework at school, I usually try to sneak it in some classes that we're not really doing anything.
I put effort in doing my homework, but if it's too much, I just end up just trying to complete it. I feel like the expectations in Somerville is a little more lenient.
I think homework should be for students to learn and not to just have something to do. It needs to have a goal, an objective. It needs to complement what is done in a classroom.
I think the idea behind homework is that students have some exposure to material before coming to class so that they're more prepared. I think there could be a lot of reasons that some students might do homework and some might not. Some reasons that come to mind might be that students have other obligations, whether that be sports or a job or taking care of siblings, other responsibilities at home. Some students might not see the value in doing homework. So I don't give homework for the sake of assigning something. I like to only give homework that really has some sort of value for the students, not just busy work.
Overall, after viewing the topic of homework, we figured out that everyone views homework differently. Some find it essential while others find it to be a waste of time. And to be honest, being a junior at Somerville High, some classes I'll do it, some I won't. I'm ending it, and I'm Jules from the Somerville Neighborhood News.
I sure hope his teachers weren't watching that confession. But isn't it great to get student stories from the high school?
Yes, actually, that story is a perfect example of the thinking behind our news program. The students came up with the idea themselves. The teacher and I provided training and advice. Here at SCAT TV, we offer the same thing. Anyone can become a member, take classes, and learn how to be a news reporter, and then cover issues and events that they care about.
If operating a camera isn't your cup of tea, we have 5 interns who are great TV news reporters coming on board next week, but they need Somerville residents to guide their stories and give them ideas. We're looking for community reporters, people who would pair up with our interns.
What's happening on your block? Who's your neighborhood hero? What issues aren't being covered by the newspapers? Get involved and give us a call at 617-628-8826 and leave a message for me, or write me at news@scattvsomerville.org. I'll get right back to you.
Now, let's hear from Dan Atkinson at the Somerville Journal.
Hello, this week in the Journal we'll be looking at the latest property tax bills and what they mean for businesses. We'll be checking in with the Green Line extension and how the construction teams are planning to try to reduce noise and sound pollution in the areas of the new Green Line. And we'll also be looking at what the freezing cold temperatures mean for your heating bill. If you want to check out the paper, it comes out every Thursday, and you can look at it online at wickedlocal.com/Somerville, and you can always reach me either by phone at 617-629-3385 or by email at datkinson@wickedlocal.com.
Next story ran in the last newscast, but that was Christmas Eve, so we're running it again. It could be good news for Somerville residents looking for good jobs. A local hire and training agreement is being crafted between the MBTA, the cities of Somerville, Cambridge, and Medford, community groups, and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation.
So here is where the future Union Square T station of the Green Line is going to be. This is all the area that the MBTA, Mass DOT, and the city is going to be developing. So we were like, here is going to be an investment of $1.4 billion. So how we can make sure some of that money stay in their community, in our community here in Somerville, and provide opportunity for our residents to have access to those jobs.
The Green Line extension construction has already started and will take at least 5 years. The Somerville Community Corporation and Jobs for Somerville are working on an agreement with the MBTA that would assure Somerville residents get some of those construction jobs.
We want to make sure this project, the Green Line extension, provide opportunities for local communities, minorities, people of color, and women.
The Mass Department of Transportation and the MBTA both say they agree with the idea of assuring construction benefits local businesses and also local workers. Dr. Beverly Scott is the MBTA's general manager.
There have to be ways that we can in fact wind up being able so that where we're actually making the investments, in many instances where citizens are going to wind up experiencing the most in terms of disruption, that we can really wind up saying, why does it matter to me? There is no reason why we should not be, in every instance, trying to see how we can wind up not only spending these dollars to make great transportation investments, but at the same time doing everything that we can to stimulate both job opportunities as well as overall economic business opportunities for communities and businesses and people that live within the Commonwealth.
MassDOT, the MBTA, and the Somerville Group sent a delegation to Denver recently in order to learn from a similar project called Workforce Initiative Now. There are differences in what the Somerville groups want and what the MBTA can approve, according to Dr. Scott.
I'll be very candid with you. It's not an easy thing to do because I don't want to get into all but these projects are either federally assisted. They all have a very competitive, and it's right. I mean, they all have a public procurement competitive base to them. I know that if it's going to have our imprimatur and on our project, at the end of the day, we're going to have to stand to make sure that everything that would wind up happening with such a project would wind up meeting the strictures of what we have to do from a compliance perspective. And it's going to take a lot of partners, okay? Can't do it without the community partners. Quite candidly, it's going to wind up taking apprenticeships and organized labor. Is that we're very, very looking to be a very strong partner at the table. The other is on the educational and people who do organizations that really do workforce training. The point is to really try to make sure that at the end of the day that we have actually been able to help to create and foment real long-sustaining, life-sustaining, what wind up being real opportunities for people in terms of employment.
There are still a number of details to be worked out, like who will control the project. The Somerville groups also would like guaranteed percentages for local job seekers.
If we review the history of transportation project in Massachusetts, we have the Big Dig or the Central Artery being one. the extension of the red line that, like if we review the history, what happened in Davis Square was gentrification. People got displaced, and that is what we are worried that is going to happen in the corridor where the Green Line extension is going to be. So to make sure people have the opportunity to stay in the community, we want to create some space for them to have access to those jobs.
What our intention is at this point is that now we kind of got a whole bunch of information together. Certainly our partners with the Jobs for Somerville have been working on this with us, and I know it gets a little frustrating sometimes because it's like we want to get from giddy up to whoa, okay, and we also want to get from giddy up to whoa, but we also want to make sure we get from giddy up to whoa in a way that meets federal muster as well, okay, and so what we've done is that we've committed that I'm hopeful that we will in fact be able to have a good template of an MOU that we'll have completed, at least a good draft in January.
The MBTA, community groups, labor, and others still have a ways to go before they finalize their agreement. But already, the program is shaping up to be one that will benefit Somerville's residents. Just how many jobs are we talking about? That and other details still need to be worked out. We'll keep an eye on this in the months to come. Reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Jane Regan.
We end tonight's newscast with another story from our December 24th show. It's a look at homelessness in Somerville from reporter Monica Akhtar.
Just 2 years ago, after suffering repeated domestic abuse, Helen and her children were suddenly homeless.
People have this conception of what a homeless person really looks like. They're supposed to be that person that's on the street, drinking and, older and dirty and what have you. But when you tell them like we were, we don't look the part, as you would say, but yeah. But people in Somerville really don't, it's almost like they have a blind eye to it.
After moving in and out of shelters for 2 years, they now finally have a place to call home.
I mean, they had to see a side of stuff that I never wanted them to see, but, how people had drug problems or, mental issues and stuff like that, so.
Domestic abuse is one of the leading causes of homelessness. Another is poverty. 15% of Somerville residents are considered poor.
The people need to open their eyes to what is actually happening out there. People see that the people that they think that are homeless they're not bad people. You know what I mean? The girl next door, the guy next door, it's that simple. But a lot of people just don't understand what the word homelessness means.
Some Somerville residents are caught between the recession, the lack of subsidized housing, and rising rents. Since 2000, the median contract rent in Somerville has increased by 43%, according to the city.
Especially for people at the bottom of the economic ladder, wages have been stagnant for years now, while costs have gone way up. Rent being the worst cost. I mean, if you're very poor, you almost have to have some kind of housing subsidy to be able to live in Somerville. I mean, it's very expensive because it's so desirable. It's convenient to get into Boston. Somerville's hip. Everybody wants to live in Somerville. But people who grew up here can't afford to live here anymore. The terrible thing that's happened during this recession is that the number of people in deep poverty has increased from 16 million people to 25 million people. So deep poverty, a family of 4 in Somerville living on $11,000 a year. I mean, it's almost impossible to imagine how they can do it. They're living with so little.
Almost half of all households spend more than 1/3 of their income on rent or mortgages. Some spend more than half. The exact number of homeless individuals is difficult to count, but there are over 4,000 homeless families in the state and hundreds of homeless individuals in Somerville alone.
We have a shelter for individuals. It has 16 beds. It's filled every night. We have a family shelter with 20 beds for 5 families. It's filled every night. We have about 175 families and individuals in permanent housing that we control, but those are always filled.
As of December, some public school children were sleeping in shelters, motels, or on friends' couches.
We encourage people, to come to the food pantry if they've got to make, choices between paying your rent and buying food.
Project Soup, run by Somerville Homeless Coalition, is open 6 days a week and sees 15 to 25 visitors each day. The people who visit the food pantry are not always homeless. Some have jobs and families, but use their entire income to pay their rent.
We'll see you later. Have a nice holiday. All right, bye-bye.
Mark Gray was homeless until just 3 weeks ago. He now lives in Somerville Homeless Coalition's permanent housing and works to pay 30% of his rent. He says he could not have gotten there without help.
Once I reached a point where, I've had enough, that I was able to, there's got to be a better way than this. And through the resources available through Casper, getting myself some recovery and building my foundation, that I've been able to deal with other issues in my life, getting housing and getting myself back on my feet and kind of restoring some values in myself.
Despite the booming developments taking place here in Somerville, there are still people being left behind who must resort to staying in shelters like this one here on Cross Street. Reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Monica Akhtar.
Did you know that there are over 60 homeless kids in the Somerville public schools? It's a big problem across the state. To see an interview I did on this in our previous newscast, go to our website or search Somerville Neighborhood News on Google.
There are so many interesting stories in Somerville, some good news and some not so good news. We hope you will join our team as a news producer or community reporter. That wraps up our broadcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back on January 28th.
If you have ideas for stories you'd like to see, or if you would like to get involved as an anchor or reporter, please drop us a line at news@scatvsomerville.org. And remember that you can watch the Somerville Neighborhood News anytime on our website, where you can view the news with subtitles in many different languages.